I'm Brian London.
I'm Jonathan Ford.
And on this week's edition of Ford News, obviously we talk about the fallout from the election. We talk about the Trump legal battles and where they stand. And we bring back our favorite segment of the week, the Ford Fact Check. That and more coming your way right now here on Ford News. Hey everyone, I'm Brian London. He's Johnathan Ford. Follow him on X at FordJonathan5. Follow me on X at Miami Radio Beast. Jonathan, we're not quite a week removed from the election, but we're getting there. We're about 6 days removed from the election. And first of all, before we get into that, I think we should thank the constant stream of over 4,000 people that watched our election night special on X and YouTube and all the platforms that we had it on. It was great to see that many people tuned in, and we definitely appreciate the support. But like us, I'm sure they are still trying to deal with the outcome of last Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Not what we thought it would be. We're not going to do a full autopsy, but we'd be remiss if we didn't give our thoughts about what happened in the election.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. People didn't show up, and then the voters that did show up, just like we've seen in North Carolina, where you had the Democrats basically win the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state, the attorney general spot. You had them win in Arizona that was just declared late yesterday. And then you had other elections that we thought was going to be extremely close. It was just declared in the Democratic favor. There was multiples of them in those states. And what it appears is that a lot of the people voted, and they voted for the senator or governor on the Democratic ticket, but they didn't necessarily vote for Harris in some of those states to offset the better performance that Trump had, like in Pennsylvania, where he picked up 200,000 votes from 2020 to 2024, I'm sorry, 200,000 votes, and Harris stayed at the same level as what Biden's level was in 2020 at that particular state. So that means even if Biden was running, or we put 2020 numbers versus 2024 in Pennsylvania, even if Harris got Biden's numbers, it still would not have been enough to win that state. We've seen it in a couple different branches. You have a couple other different states. It's the number one factor is that YT people are white people. I'm always used to saying YT because that's the TikTok friendly talk when I debate, but the white people showed up definitely for Trump, and they make up for 60 to 65% of the voting block. We do know that in Harris, there was some demographics that actually did show up more so in 2000 versus 2020. Like the Jewish community actually showed up at 79% for Harris versus the typical 79%. So they did their part. We know that the Black women vote, who continue to always be the base of the Democratic Party, they still showed up at the normal 92% support for Harris. What it all just boils down to is people just didn't show up, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, and when it's all said and done, right? When every vote has been counted and recounted and double counted and factored and math has been done, like MAGA's going around like this is a landslide. And if you look at the map, the electoral map, it looks like it. But really, what you're going to find out is Donald Trump won the election by like 1.5%, which he won the election, but that's not some ridiculous. That's not a Ronald Reagan win, right? Where Ronald Reagan won 49 states out of the 50 back in 1980. That's not what this was.
Only losing Minnesota.
Yeah. So it's listen. It's not what we wanted it to be. We can spend hours and hours dissecting what went right, what went wrong in the campaign. But I think the best thing that we can do, not just as a show, but as people that believe in democracy, is is move forward, is figure out what we're going to do now, right? Is turn the page, not forget the mistakes that were made, not forgetting the past, but concentrating on the future. And that being said, you and I talked about it before we started recording, Jonathan, and we're recording Sunday night, 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. If you're on X, there's just massive amounts of conspiracy theorists on the left going crazy about Starlink and hacking into voting systems and Elon Musk and the 20 million votes and this and that. And it's like, listen, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I understand it. But, if that's the case, I guarantee you someone's going to figure it out. But as of right now, every state, every person that is involved in the election process has said it was a fair election. I'm sure if there were Starlink satellites involved in the election outcome, that as of now, with Joe Biden still in power, like that would be brought to light. I don't want progressives and liberals and Democrats to fall into the stop the steal situation that we saw in 2020, Jonathan. It was just ridiculous what we saw coming from MAGA. There's no reason to stoop to their level.
Yeah, I would hope that after when we called out MAGA for 4 years for not respecting the will of the people and not respecting our democracy and how things work, even if it's not in our favor, um, we still have to respect the process that was there. And as of right now, every indication from every Secretary of State, from everyone that I have seen, has said that this election was fair. And I am not personally gonna play any type of role. Now I do question like why people would vote, like I stated here, would vote for a governor in a particular state. And this happened in multiple states. Or even a senator in Arizona, why they would vote for them and then either just leave Harris off or vote for Trump. That's my only questioning, and that's what we have to learn from, and that's what we have to take with us in 2028 election is to figure out what wrong in that aspect. Also, what we could have done to help Harris out. Maybe the few months that she had to run a campaign wasn't enough. We'll never know. We'll never know these answers. But what we have to do is continue to move forward. And the Democratic Party has to get better right now, this moment, at messaging as far as what the actual facts are, because we do know from just other reporting is that propaganda and disinformation ran rampant, and I was debating this night in and night out at TikTok, and you just wouldn't believe the amount of people that believed the propaganda or believed what was going on or what Trump was saying was truthful, and it just none of it panned out. If his lips were moving, he was lying.
Yeah. I mean, but that's been his deal for 9 years or longer. Is to just throw out mistruths, untruths, non-truths. One other thing I want to cover here in the first segment is both of us are heavily involved on X. You more so with your 100,000+ followers. We see liberals and Dems and progressives saying, "I'm out of here. I'm going to blue sky," and I get it. There's a lot of people that are frustrated with Elon Musk and the way he's run
He'll be back.
Twitter into the ground. I get it, but for my purpose, for seeing what is happening in the world, it's still the best thing out there, right? There's not a better service. Like, we did this when Elon Musk bought X. Everyone was like, "Oh, I'm going to Threads," right? Meta, Facebook came up with Threads, and I'm going to Threads. Everyone made an account on Threads. I haven't been on Threads since 3 days after Threads existed, because it's not the same, right? There was the Mastodon, there was this, there was that. I'm going over here. Everyone comes back to X. They're going to come back to X. I get it, you're upset, but when it's all said and done, like the platform pretty much works. Now, what I wanted to ask you actually, Jonathan, is a lot of people talk about being shadow banned and having, losing followers and this and that. Have you run into any of these problems on X?
Yeah, so you just got to weather the storm. I did go from almost nearly, I think it was like 131,000 followers, and just within a matters of a few days, dropped 7,000. So some people are like, "Holy smokes, that's more followers than I actually have," and you just dropped. And aren't you alarmed? And I said, "No, because." People are frustrated, and rightfully so that they're frustrated, and they're allowed to express that in any way that they want. And one of them is deactivating their X account, then that's how they're able to deal with just the letdown and disappointment. Um, I have joined actually Threads and Blue Ski or whatever it's
Blue
called,
Sky, yep.
Blue Sky. I have joined them just because I think I have an obligation uh, to get the podcast out so we can spread the truth out to
Sure.
the most people that we possibly can. And um, also, just on X, I kept getting asked to join these other sources, but there's definitely accounts that you see that would typically get 7,000 likes, 400,000 views. There would be times that um, we would have viral tweets that would go for 1 million plus views or a couple 100,000. And just right now, with people's frustration, we're not seeing it. But for news on X isn't going anywhere. We're going to continue to grow on other platforms and grow on X after people get done realizing that their frustrations are warranted, but it's time to just what they say, pull up your bootstraps and let's get to work. And that's what we're going to do here on 4 News is we're going to continue to do what we do and hopefully get better as time goes on.
The other thing I think that listen, is widely known, and it's a big part of how numbers change on X and how things change is because of bots and the movement of bots and where bots are and who they
Mhm.
follow and who they don't follow and all of that stuff. I thought Elon was supposed to clean that up. That didn't quite happen, but they're all over the place. And listen, the Russians are still heavily involved in all of this, right? We were talking about it on our election night special as it was going down. All these fake bomb threats, all this propaganda, all this fake news, all this stuff. The Russians are still involved. Whether you want to believe it or not, that's up to you, but it's a fact. That's not a conspiracy theory, and they're all over X too. So there you go. All right. We're going to take a break, Jonathan. When we come back on the other side, we definitely have to discuss Trump's legal battles because what happens
Yep.
now? What happens now that we have a president elect that's involved in a million different legal cases? We have to discuss that and more. We'll do it on the other side. You're listening and watching Ford News. Welcome back to Ford News. He is Jonathan Ford. Follow him on X at Ford Jonathan 5. I'm Brian London. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. Please, wherever you are listening to this or watching this, hit the subscribe button. Like it, make a comment, do all that stuff. Tell your friends. We would appreciate your help in getting the message of Ford News out there. Jonathan, there's always been a rule, pretty much unspoken, but that a sitting president, you can't involve him in a legal case, right? Because the president's got way too much important stuff going on to, be sitting in a courtroom. So uh, there's a bunch of federal and state cases out there that Donald Trump is still involved in. And a lot of people want to know what the heck is going to happen now.
Yeah. So the just a few days ago, Special Counsel Jack Smith um, actually asked for the DC case to be temporarily suspended or hold any proceedings, pretrial decisions going forward until December 2nd, while the Department of Justice actually makes an assessment on how they move forward with this particular case. Let's make sure that everyone realizes the case out of DC is actually the attempt to overturn the 2020 election with conspiring against the United States. And that's versus Donald Trump, where allegedly Special Counsel Jack Smith has co-conspirators, new evidence that came with the superseding indictment that basically proves that Donald Trump tried to overturn the election if it was through the January 6th insurrection, or if it was regarding fake electors. So as of right now, that particular case is on hold until December 2nd. But what you talked about is a longstanding DOJ memo that basically just says that they wouldn't indict or put a president through any type of criminal trial, because they should be spending their time running the country rather than defending themselves in the court case.
Right.
Also, if he's a sitting president, that also puts a White House in a predicament as far as White House lawyers on what is protecting the presidency, or the office of the presidency, and what is protecting Donald Trump, the actual person. So it just leaves a whole scope of things that wide open while he sits as president, when we all know the means to remove somebody, well, hopefully the means to remove somebody from impeachment was the Constitution actually wanted people, one, to not elect a convicted felon, but two, if they did do crimes outside the presidency or any type of crime, then it goes through the impeachment process and then the removal through the Senate. So where then you could actually start criminal trials or civil trials against the presidency. But this also ties into the immunity that anything he does while in presidency or in the office of the presidency, while he's the sitting president come this January, then we'll see what the immunity or how he reacts to this, because it could be quite interesting.
And listen, anyone that thinks that at 12:01 p.m. on January 20th there won't be some complete and utter destruction of the special counsel's office and Jack Smith goes bye-bye. I mean, that's what's going to happen. It's all going to go away because Trump can make it go away. Whoever he appoints as a attorney general, it's going to make it go away. It's all going to go away. Now, the state cases, it's a different situation.
Yep.
The First of all, Donald Trump cannot pardon himself from a state conviction, and two, the federal government doesn't have precedents to step into what is going on in New York or Georgia. So, what do we think is going to happen with these state cases, Jonathan?
Well, there's multiple rumors out there, and then we have also Trump's attorney out there making threats to Tish James, who's the district attorney over in New York, that basically, if she doesn't stop any of her proceedings, or basically a threat that will basically come. I think he used "come after your." I don't know if I should say it, but FASS.
Ah,
So yeah, so basically a disgusting remark from an attorney for Trump, but that's basically where we are right now. There's some people that think that some of these cases, especially the one in Georgia with Fani Willis, will actually be put on hold till 2029. So we'll wait and see where these cases go, but I don't think neither one of these young, brilliant women have ever backed down. So I don't. So if the case is going to proceed and a judge allows those cases to proceed, I foresee that these women will not be intimidated one bit by the Trump administration.
yeah. I mean, to make it a point, uh, Fulton County reelected Fani Willis. So
Yeah.
she's going to feel emboldened because she just got reelected to continue doing what she's been doing. And Tish James and everybody up in New York is, they're not going to be bullied either. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Um, I'm really, I mean, listen, obviously, I want us to, have a democracy and have a good constitutional republic and everything to be uh, everything to be the same as it has been for the last 200 plus years, right? But I also kind of anxious because I like chaos. Uh, I want to see what happens, right? Like I want to see the legal battles that are about to go down between whoever is representing Trump in these state cases and the DAs and the attorney generals of these states and all this stuff. I'm kind of into what is about to happen, and I can only imagine what the days and weeks and months and years to come are going to be like.
Yeah, so we talked about this even after Harris's loss, when we come to the realization that some of the what the election was called, is that uh, Trump is good for one thing, and that's for uh, creating this chaos that is good for news or good for podcasts.
Right.
For example, this one. Um, uh, but it's not to say that we wouldn't trade one or the other. Like we would
Right.
definitely give up the chaos for definitely Harris victory. That's darn sure. Brian and I talked about that. I don't want anybody to assume that.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But if there's anything that is a reflection of his first presidency versus this one, we know what we're in store for. I think personally that it's actually going to be worse because now he has no strengths behind him. He's going to have a lot more loyalists behind him. He's not going to have those that know how to govern, like Mike Pence, that would support the Constitution before he does one particular person. You already have J.D. Vance, who already said even before the election that or in 2020 that if he was Mike Pence, he would not have certified the election then. And we have other attorneys out there that are making threats that are current positions to become attorney general under Trump's administration. So it's definitely going to be something that we're going to be watching out for. And I'm almost to the point where I'm going to hold like a betting market of the possibility of how many impeachable offenses Donald Trump's going to commit before his 4 years is up, and over under before. I mean, we all know first president to ever be impeached twice. I mean, he first president to after to do numerous things while in office. Most people ever convicted. It's just going to be something that we're all going to have to be vigilant and keep our eye open and just make sure that when we do go out and protest that we are not MAGA. We're not Republicans. If we do go out protest, it's going to be in a peaceful way. We're not going to try to overtake a Capitol building. We're not going to be violent. You can go out there just like in New York, I believe it was a couple days ago, where several thousand people went out and protested, and it was basically a peaceful protest where there was very little incidents of any type of violence. And that's what we just need to continue to do for the next 4 years. But for people that are down in their hopes, or just think that we're out and we can't get back into the game because there's a potential we'll lose the House. We've definitely lost the Senate, and they think that there's no way of actually winning. What I will just tell you is that's not the right attitude to have. What we have to do is do exactly what we did in 2016 and 2017, and every single time this Donald Trump does something that is morally wrong or it isn't something that we support, we have to call him out on it for the next 4 years. And if we ever win the House in the next 2 years, we just need to lock everything up so tight that he can't do a single thing but go play golf in Florida. Sorry, Brian, we're going to send him back.
Yeah, I mean, I look forward to the chaos around Mar-a-Lago as well. The winter White House. I'm sure that'll be popping with all his peeps. And let's be honest, at this point, he's not going to be doing much in the White House. He'll probably be spending most of his time at one of his golf courses, anyways, because it's not like he has to win re-election. So, he he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish, which was he got elected. He's going to avoid going to jail. So now the rest of it doesn't really make much of a difference. All right.
Yeah, and we can also
Yeah.
talk about like November 26th. Like, what does that mean for a for the sentencing in the Judge Merchan's case out of New York for the 34 criminal indictments for falsifying business documents. What does that possibly mean for the charges or possible sentencing? I have talked or inboxed back and forth a couple prosecutors, and they just think that the sentencing is probably going to be dismissed. And basically, like, you're not going to be able to put the next sitting president on probation or a jail sentence or any type of discipline. It's just going to nothing ever happened, and the sentencing will be dismissed. And that's why we always have said since or I've always said, and my parents have always told me, that elections have consequences. And when you didn't show up for the 2024 election, here's the consequences for the now nearly 13 million, because I think Harris, the last time I checked, was almost at 71 million votes versus Donald Trump's 74 million, which there's still quite a few million to come out of California. So that gap will actually probably close. But this is what the consequences of Democrats' actions, and some of the Democrats that were so far left that decided not to vote for Harris are ones that just felt it was in the bag and didn't vote at all. So here's your consequence, and MAGA will also suffer the consequences as well.
Well, that will lead us to the Ford fact check in next segment, Jonathan, because MAGA is going to feel some consequences, and maybe they might have some buyer's remorse. We'll talk about that and more on the other side. The Ford fact check comes your way next, right here on Ford News. Welcome back to Ford News. He is Johnathan Ford. Please follow him on X at FordJonathan5 and Blue Sky and everywhere else. You can follow him too. I'm mainly just on X, although I have accounts other places. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast, and I'm on TikTok as well. You can follow me on Miami Radio Beast there. I try to post a rant a day. I don't go arguing for 9 hours like Jonathan does, but you'll get some content from me there. Also, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to it. And if you're watching it, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And now it's time for us to dig into our favorite segment of the week. It's time for the Ford fact check. MAGA is going to have to learn some facts, aren't they? They may have some buyer's remorse as to